Earth had been watching the skies for decades, always wondering if they were alone. When the first signals came from deep space, scientists scrambled to decode them. At first, the messages seemed like distant echoes of a civilization far beyond humanity's reach. But soon, telescopes captured something that changed everything. A fleet of alien ships, massive and sleek, cutting through the void of space. They weren't coming to make friends. They were coming to conquer. Panic swept across the world as governments broadcast emergency warnings. Satellites tracked the fleet's trajectory as it passed Jupiter's orbit, closing in faster than anyone could have predicted. Every nation prepared for war, though most knew their weapons stood no chance against technology advanced enough to cross galaxies. Yet, as the alien fleet approached Mars, something impossible happened. They vanished. The entire armada, thousands of ships strong, disappeared as if swallowed by the void. Earth's defense systems, locked and ready, detected nothing. No wreckage, no fading energy signatures, just silence. Confusion spread through military command centers and scientific communities alike. Some speculated it was a trick. Others believed the aliens had encountered some unknown force near Mars. But no answers came. 2 days later, the first of the survivors arrived. A single alien pod drifted toward Earth's atmosphere, crashing into the Arizona desert. The military sealed off the site within hours, surrounding the strange, metallic craft that seemed half-melted from within. When they pried open its hatch, they found a creature inside, barely alive. The alien was humanoid but grotesquely altered, its skin pale and translucent, veins pulsing with an iridescent blue fluid. Its eyes, once black, had turned milky white, and its breath came in ragged gasps. Scientists rushed to study it, but the creature died within hours, its body collapsing into a puddle of organic sludge that evaporated before tests could be conducted. More pods appeared over the following days, scattered across Earth, from the Siberian tundra to the Sahara's burning sands. Some held aliens still clinging to life, others contained only shriveled remains. None survived longer than a few hours. Each one showed signs of internal decay, as though something had attacked them from within. Governments struggled to keep the truth hidden, but leaked footage of the pods and dying aliens spread across the internet. Speculation exploded. Some believed Earth had secretly developed a weapon capable of wiping out the invaders before they arrived. Others whispered of an ancient force protecting the planet, something humanity could never understand. But those closest to the truth knew it was neither of these things. Dr. Elena Torres, lead astrophysicist at the Global Space Defense Initiative, was among the few who'd studied the alien signals from the beginning. Late one night, she sat alone in her lab, scrolling through data from deep space sensors. Her fingers froze on the keyboard as she spotted an anomaly, a faint pulse of energy emanating from Mars's orbit. It matched no natural phenomenon, and its frequency was unlike any human technology. Heart-pounding, she enhanced the signal, filtering out background noise. Hidden within the pulse was a sequence of sounds, distorted and fragmented, but unmistakably a voice. Using advanced decryption algorithms, she reconstructed fragments of the message. As the garbled words filled her headphones, a chill ran down her spine. "We tried. The humans, not what they seem. Something inside. It spreads. No escape. Mars. A trap. Earth. Doomed." Elena stared at the screen, her mind racing. The aliens hadn't vanished. They'd been attacked, but not by Earth. Something near Mars had destroyed them. And if their message was true, whatever had infected their fleet was heading toward Earth. Before she could alert her superiors, her computer screen flickered and went dark. The lab's overhead lights dimmed. plunging the room into shadows. A faint hum resonated through the air, as if the walls themselves were vibrating. Elena grabbed her phone, but its screen was dead. Panic rising, she rushed to the door, only to find it locked tight, the keypad unresponsive. A metallic creak echoed from the lab's ventilation system. Elena backed away as cold air poured from the vents, carrying a faint chemical scent that burned her nostrils. Her breaths grew shallow, her pulse hammering in her chest. She stumbled toward the emergency exit, but her legs faltered, as though her muscles were turning to lead. Falling to her knees, she clutched at her throat, choking on invisible fumes. As darkness closed in, her last thought was a single, terrifying realization. Earth hadn't been saved from the aliens. It had been exposed to something far worse. Days passed after Elena Torres vanished from the Global Space Defense Initiative, and no one questioned her absence. Official reports claimed she'd resigned due to stress, but those who knew her best found the explanation hollow. Her research files had been sealed, her lab stripped of equipment overnight. It was as if she'd never existed. Yet whispers of her final discovery spread through underground networks. Rumors of a force near Mars that had destroyed the alien fleet and was now approaching Earth. Most dismissed the stories as fear-mongering, but a few believed. Among them was Commander David Cole of Earth's Orbital Defense Command. Cole had seen the alien pods with his own eyes. He'd stood in the quarantine labs as military scientists dissected the creatures, witnessing the strange decay that consumed them from within. And he'd heard the garbled transmission Elena had decoded before her disappearance. Unlike the others, he couldn't forget the final words. Earth, doomed. Now, standing before the reinforced windows of Earth's primary orbital station, Cole gazed at the blue planet below. The station orbited high above the atmosphere, a technological marvel designed to intercept threats from space. Yet for all its advanced weaponry, Cole couldn't shake the feeling that they were unprepared. A soft chime broke the silence, and Cole turned to see Lieutenant Sarah Vance entering the control room. Her face was pale, eyes wide with unspoken fear. "Sir, we've detected something," she said, her voice tight. "A cluster of unidentified objects moving past the asteroid belt. Trajectory indicates they'll reach Mars within 24 hours. Cole's pulse quickened. "Show me." Vance activated the holographic display, projecting a three-dimensional map of the solar system. Small red dots moved steadily toward Mars, their formation chaotic and erratic, as if they were fleeing something unseen. But what caught Cole's attention wasn't the objects themselves. It was what followed behind them. A vast shadow loomed at the edge of the display, its exact dimensions unclear. Sensors couldn't define its shape or composition, only that it emitted no heat, no light, nothing. Just a void moving through space, swallowing all signals that touched it. Cole leaned closer, eyes narrowing. "Is this a ship?" Vance shook her head. "Unknown, sir. Our instruments can't penetrate it, but whatever it is, it's enormous, larger than any object we've ever recorded beyond Jupiter." A cold knot formed in Cole's stomach. "Have we sent probes?" "3 so far," Vance replied. "All went dark within minutes of approaching the anomaly. No data returned." Cole clenched his jaw. The aliens who'd tried to conquer Earth had vanished near Mars, destroyed by something they couldn't fight. And now that same force was coming closer. "Alert all defense stations," he ordered. "Raise threat level to maximum and prepare the orbital cannons. If this thing comes within range, we fire." Vance hesitated. "Sir, with respect, what if it's not something we can stop?" The aliens were more advanced than us, and they didn't stand a chance. Cole's gaze hardened. "Then we die fighting. Humanity won't go down without a fight." Hours passed in tense silence as the unidentified objects approached Mars. The world below remained oblivious, governments maintaining a strict information blackout to prevent mass panic. Only those within the military and scientific elite knew the truth, that Earth stood on the brink of annihilation. At precisely 0200 hours, the first anomaly occurred. Orbital sensors detected a sudden burst of electromagnetic interference near Mars, followed by a surge of heat and radiation. Surveillance satellites captured fragmented images, brief glimpses of colossal tendrils emerging from the void, lashing out with impossible speed. The fleeing objects, once assumed to be remnants of the alien fleet, vanished one by one, consumed in flashes of blue-white energy. Inside Earth's orbital station, alarms blared as data streams filled with static. Cole and his team scrambled to maintain sensor locks, but the interference grew stronger by the second. "Status!" Cole barked over the chaos. "Massive energy surges near Mars, sir," Vance shouted above the noise. "Our instruments are failing. Whatever that thing is, it's distorting space-time itself." Visual feed. The holographic display flickered, then stabilized. What they saw froze them in place. A shape loomed beyond Mars, partially obscured by the planet's thin atmosphere. It was neither ship nor creature, but something in between, a vast amalgamation of organic tissue and metallic spires, shifting and twisting as if alive. Its surface pulsed with sickly blue light, veins of energy coursing through chitinous armor. Long tendrils extended from its core, each one tipped with jagged, crystalline growths that seemed to absorb the faint starlight around them. Then, as if sensing their gaze, the entity turned. Though it possessed no eyes, its presence seemed to focus on Earth's orbital station. A low-frequency hum resonated through space, vibrating the station's hull and sending shivers down every spine. "Sir, it's locking onto us," Vance whispered, her voice barely audible. Cole forced his fear aside, slamming his fist on the emergency console. "Fire all orbital cannons. Target the core and don't stop until that thing's dust." The station's railguns and plasma batteries roared to life, unleashing a barrage of energy blasts and hypersonic projectiles. Bolts of plasma seared through space, leaving trails of ionized gas in their wake. Railgun slugs, accelerated to near-light speed, slammed into the entity's surface with devastating force. For a moment, hope flared. Sections of the creature's outer shell shattered under the assault, releasing bursts of iridescent fluid that crystallized upon contact with vacuum. But the damage was superficial. The entity shifted, its wounds sealing almost instantly as tendrils extended toward the station, moving faster than any human weapon could track. Cole braced himself as the tendrils closed in. And then, without warning, the creature stopped, its entire form convulsed, as if struck by an invisible force. The blue light within its core flickered, growing erratic and unstable. Energy pulses rippled across its surface, each one stronger than the last. The entity twisted and writhed, its tendrils retracting as though in agony. "What's happening?" Cole demanded, gripping the console. Vance's eyes darted across the chaotic data streams. "I don't know, it's reacting to something. There's a secondary energy source near Mars. It's inside the planet." Cole's heart pounded. Inside Mars? Before he could process the implications, the creature's core exploded in a burst of blinding blue light, sending shockwaves rippling through space. The station's shields flared as debris scattered in all directions. But the worst had passed. The void that had consumed the alien fleet was gone. As silence returned, Cole exhaled slowly, shoulders sagging with exhaustion. Yet a single question lingered in his mind. If something inside Mars destroyed that creature, what will it do when it turns its gaze toward Earth? News of the anomaly's destruction never reached the public. Governments scrambled to suppress any leaked footage, erasing evidence from satellites and silencing those who asked too many questions. Yet within the highest ranks of Earth's military and scientific communities, a new fear took root. The entity had been powerful beyond comprehension, but something inside Mars had obliterated it within seconds. Commander Cole sat in the dimly lit war room of Earth's Orbital Defense Command, staring at holographic schematics projected above the steel table. Images of Mars rotated slowly, marked with red zones where sensors had detected strange energy signatures. Since the entity's destruction, those signals had grown stronger, as if something beneath the planet's surface had awakened. Across the table, General Catherine Briggs, head of Earth's Strategic Space Command, studied Cole with a hard gaze. Decades of military service had carved lines into her face, but tonight her eyes held something colder than fear: calculation. "You're certain the entity was destroyed by something inside Mars?" she asked, her voice low and deliberate. "Yes, ma'am," Cole replied. "Our sensors detected a secondary energy pulse originating beneath the planet's surface. The creature's core destabilized immediately after that pulse." Briggs tapped her fingers against the steel table, each movement precise. "And what's the current status of the energy source?" "It's still active," Cole said, "but its output is increasing. Whatever's down there, it's getting stronger." Briggs leaned back, expression unreadable. "We can't afford to wait. Launch a recon team, deep surface insertion. I want eyes on the source." Cole hesitated. "With respect, General, that's a risk we can't predict. If it destroyed something as powerful as that entity, our people won't stand a chance if—" "Commander," Briggs interrupted, her tone sharp. "Our mission is to ensure Earth's survival. We need to know what we're dealing with. Launch the mission. That's an order." Cole clenched his jaw but nodded. "Yes, ma'am." 3 days later, the recon team departed from Earth's orbital station aboard the Archangel, a state-of-the-art stealth cruiser designed for deep space infiltration. Its hull gleamed obsidian black against the void, equipped with the latest cloaking technology to evade detection. Leading the mission was Captain Naomi Hayes, a seasoned operative whose reputation for surviving impossible odds had earned her both respect and fear. Beside her stood Lieutenant Ethan Park, a cybernetics specialist whose neural implants enhanced his reflexes and cognitive speed. The rest of the team, 10 elite soldiers equipped with advanced exosuits, prepared for planetary insertion as the cruiser approached Mars. Inside the command deck, Hayes adjusted her headset as the planet loomed on the main display. Clouds of red dust swirled across its surface, obscuring deep canyons and jagged mountain ranges. Yet beneath the barren crust, sensors detected something unnatural, a pulse of energy that resonated through the planet's core like a slow, steady heartbeat. "Approaching drop zone," the pilot announced. "Surface insertion in 60 seconds. Hayes activated her suit's internal comms. "Team, status check." "Systems green," Park replied, his voice calm. "Neural interface calibrated, ready for insertion." "Alpha Squad, ready," echoed Sergeant Ramirez, leader of the ground unit. The Archangel descended through Mars's thin atmosphere, its thrusters leaving faint trails of blue plasma against the rust-colored sky. Automated defense systems scanned the surface for potential threats, but found none. Only silence and wind howling through ancient canyons. As the cruiser approached the insertion point, a crater near the planet's equator, the pulse of energy grew stronger, vibrating through the ship's hull like a distant drumbeat. Instruments flickered as interference increased, but the pilot maintained control. "Initiating drop sequence," he announced. "Hold tight." The ship's belly opened, releasing the drop pods, sleek capsules reinforced with adaptive armor designed to withstand high-speed impact. Hayes gripped the harness inside her pod as it accelerated toward the surface, her pulse steady despite the rapid descent. Outside the narrow viewport, red dust blurred past in streaks of copper and gold. Seconds later, the pods slammed into the ground, shock absorbers engaging to cushion the impact. Armor plating retracted with a hiss of hydraulics, allowing the soldiers to emerge onto the surface. Hayes stepped into the thin Martian air, her suit's filtration systems automatically adjusting to the low oxygen levels. Around her, jagged cliffs rose from the crater's edge, casting long shadows beneath the pale sun. "Alpha Squad, form up," she ordered. "Park, get me a fix on the energy source." Park knelt beside a portable scanner, its sensors calibrated to detect anomalous energy signatures. The device emitted a faint hum as he adjusted the controls. "Source is directly beneath us," he reported, "approximately 3 kilometers underground. I'm detecting artificial structures, metallic alloys not found in any known human technology." Hayes exchanged a glance with Ramirez. "Artificial? You're saying there's a facility down there?" "Not just a facility," Park replied. "A network of tunnels and chambers. Something massive. It's ancient, but still active." Ramirez tightened his grip on his plasma rifle. "If it's been down there all this time, why is it waking up now?" Before anyone could answer, the ground beneath their feet trembled. Dust cascaded from the crater walls as deep vibrations resonated through the rock, growing stronger with each pulse. Instruments crackled with static, interference levels spiking off the charts. "Movement below us!" Park shouted. "Something's—" A deafening roar erupted from beneath the surface, and the ground split apart with a thunderous crack. Hayes stumbled as jagged fissures opened beneath her feet, forcing the team to scatter. From the depths of the earth, metallic tendrils shot upward, sleek and segmented, tipped with crystalline blades that gleamed in the sun. They moved with unnatural speed, slashing through the air as if searching for prey. "Open fire!" Hayes barked, raising her plasma rifle. Bolts of energy lanced through the air, striking the tendrils with bursts of molten metal and shattered crystal. Yet the tendrils continued to rise, dozens of them weaving through the air like serpents. One lashed toward Park, but he dove aside, rolling across the rocky ground as its blade slashed through the air where he'd stood moments before. "Fall back to the ridge," Hayes ordered. "We need cover." The team retreated toward the crater's edge, firing as they moved. Ramirez's squad unleashed a barrage of explosives, shattering several tendrils into molten fragments. Yet more continued to emerge, their movements synchronized as if guided by a single intelligence. As they reached the ridge, Hayes activated her comms. "Archangel, this is Ground Team 1. We're under attack. Request immediate extraction." Static answered her call. The interference had severed their communications. Gritting her teeth, Hayes turned to Park. "We need a way to disable whatever's controlling these things. Can you pinpoint the main power source?" Park ducked behind a rock, adjusting his scanner as tendrils lashed overhead. "Working on it. Hold them off a little longer." The ground beneath them trembled again, and a low, resonant hum echoed through the air. Deep and ancient, like the voice of something that had slept for millennia and was now awakening with purpose. Beneath the planet's surface, unseen and unstoppable, something stirred, and Earth's first encounter with its true power was only beginning. Beneath the cracked Martian surface, the hum deepened, resonating through the air with a force that vibrated through bone and steel alike. Hayes gritted her teeth against the pressure, plasma rifle clutched tight as she fired at the relentless tendrils closing in. Ramirez's squad held the line, exosuits hissing as they absorbed impacts and amplified the soldiers' strength. But for every tendril they shattered, more rose from the fissures, faster, stronger, adapting to their attacks. "Park!" Hayes shouted over the chaos. "We're getting torn apart out here!" I've almost got it. Park knelt behind a slab of shattered rock, his scanner flickering from interference. Sweat beaded on his brow as his neural implants struggled to filter the overwhelming energy signatures beneath them. There's a central core, 500 meters below. If we can disable it, we might shut this whole system down. 500 meters. Ramirez fired a burst of plasma that severed a tendril mid-strike. Unless you've got a drill in that scanner, we're not getting down there. Another tremor rocked the ground, sending soldiers sprawling as fissures widened. Hayes staggered but kept her footing, eyes locked on the largest crack ahead. The hum rose to a deafening pitch. Then, with a sound like thunder tearing the world apart, the earth collapsed inward. Dust and rock cascaded into the abyss as the team scrambled back from the widening chasm. From the depths emerged a shape that dwarfed the tendrils. It rose slowly, segmented armor gleaming with blue bioluminescence beneath plates of blackened metal. The creature's form was vaguely humanoid, tall and skeletal, with elongated limbs that ended in razor-sharp claws. Its head lacked eyes, yet Hayes felt its attention settle on them with suffocating intensity. "What the hell is that?" Ramirez whispered, voice shaking. "I don't know," Hayes replied, "but it's not letting us leave alive." The creature moved with terrifying speed, claws slicing through rock as it charged forward. Plasma fire scorched its armor, but the impacts barely slowed its advance. Soldiers fell back, weaving between jagged stones as they fired in desperation. Hayes dodged a swipe that sliced through the air with a sound like tearing steel, rolling aside as shards of rock exploded around her. "Fall back," she shouted. "Regroup near the drop pods. We need—" Before she could finish, the creature lunged. Hayes barely had time to raise her rifle before a claw slammed into her side, throwing her through the air. She hit the ground hard, armor scraping against stone as she tumbled across the crater floor. Pain flared through her ribs, but she forced herself upright, vision blurred with dust and blood. "Hayes!" Park's voice crackled over comms, distorted by interference. She gasped for breath, struggling to stand as the creature advanced. "I'm still here. Park, if you've got any bright ideas, now's the time." "I've located an access tunnel," Park replied. "It leads directly to the core. If we can reach it, I might be able to override whatever's controlling this thing." "Then let's move!" Ramirez and his remaining soldiers laid down suppressive fire as Hayes sprinted toward Park's position. Tendrils lashed through the air, narrowly missing her as she ducked and wove through the chaos. The ground beneath her feet vibrated with the pulse of the core, faster and stronger with every beat, like a heart accelerating toward some terrible climax. Park waved her toward a narrow fissure near the crater's edge. The opening was barely wide enough for a person to squeeze through, jagged stone slick with condensation from the planet's subsurface heat. Without hesitation, Hayes slid inside, boots scraping against uneven rock as she descended into darkness. Park followed close behind, the flickering light of his scanner casting eerie shadows across the tunnel walls. Their armor's internal lamps illuminated veins of metallic ore embedded in the rock, strange alloys that pulsed faintly in sync with the core's energy. The air grew thick with heat and pressure, like the atmosphere of a world on the verge of collapse. "How much farther?" Hayes asked, breath ragged from the descent. 200 meters, Park replied. "The core's activity is spiking. It's like it knows we're coming." "Let's hope that means we're getting close." Behind them, distant sounds echoed through the tunnel. The scraping of claws against stone, the metallic hiss of tendrils slithering through fissures. The creature was following. Hayes quickened her pace, boots striking the rock with rhythmic force as adrenaline surged through her veins. The tunnel narrowed further, forcing her to crouch as she pressed forward. The heat intensified, sweat soaking her suit despite its cooling systems. Each step brought the pulse of the core louder, faster, until it no longer felt like a distant hum, but the very heartbeat of the planet itself. Then the tunnel opened into a vast chamber, and Hayes stopped short. The space stretched beyond the range of their suit lamps, walls vanishing into darkness overhead. At the center stood the core, a massive sphere of translucent crystal suspended above a network of metallic conduits that pulsed with blue light. Veins of liquid energy coursed through the floor and walls, connecting the core to the planet's surface, like arteries feeding a living organism. Park's scanner buzzed with overload warnings as he approached the control interface, an array of alien consoles arranged around the core's base. Symbols glowed faintly across the panels, their meaning incomprehensible, yet strangely familiar, as if designed to be understood through instinct rather than logic. "This technology, it's not alien," Park muttered, eyes wide with shock. "It's something else, older than anything we've ever seen." "Can you shut it down?" Hayes demanded, scanning the shadows for signs of pursuit. I think so, but the systems are adapting to my intrusion. I need more time." "We don't have time." Hayes spun as the tunnel behind them echoed with a distant roar. Claws scraped against stone, growing louder as the creature closed in. "Hurry, Park!" Fingers flying across the console, Park overrode security protocols one by one, each success met with resistance as the core's energy surged in defiance. Sparks arced from the conduits, illuminating the chamber with flashes of electric blue. "Almost there. Just a few more seconds." The creature lunged from the tunnel with a snarl of grinding metal, eyes blazing with blue fire. Hayes fired her plasma rifle point blank, molten bolts searing through its armor and staggering it back. But not for long. It recovered instantly, claws slashing toward her with lethal speed. Hayes dodged, rolling beneath the swipe and retaliating with a burst of plasma that shattered part of its shoulder. "Park!" she shouted as the creature advanced again. "Now!" Park's hands flew across the controls. Then he slammed his palm against the final panel. The chamber trembled as the core's pulse faltered. Blue light flickered and dimmed, conduits shuddering as energy drained from their veins. The creature staggered mid-stride, its movements jerking as if strings had been severed. With a final pulse of dying light, the core fell silent. The creature's eyes flickered, then extinguished. It collapsed to the ground, motionless as its armor cracked and crumbled into ash. Tendrils across the planet's surface withered, retracting into the earth as the network that controlled them dissolved. For a moment there was only silence. Hayes lowered her rifle, chest heaving as adrenaline ebbed. "Park, you did it." Park slumped against the console, exhaustion etched into his face. "Yeah, but I don't think this place is done with us yet." As if in answer, a low tremor rumbled through the chamber, deep and distant, like the first stirrings of something far larger awakening beneath the surface. And this time, Hayes wasn't sure they'd survive what came next. The tremors grew stronger, shaking the chamber as cracks spiderwebbed across the walls. Dust and shards of crystal rained from the ceiling, illuminated by the flickering remnants of blue light within the core. Hayes gripped the nearest console to steady herself, heart hammering as the ground beneath her feet seemed to shift like a living thing. "Park, we need to move, now!" she shouted over the rising rumble. Park staggered to his feet, still dazed from the energy backlash that had surged through the alien systems. His neural implants flickered, struggling to recalibrate in the electromagnetic chaos. "The whole structure's destabilizing. I must have triggered a failsafe when I shut down the core." "Well, you did a hell of a job," Hayes snapped, already scanning the chamber for an exit. The tunnel they'd come through was collapsing, stone and debris crashing down to seal their path. Her suit's sensors registered rising temperatures and toxic gases leaking from fissures beneath the floor. If they didn't escape soon, the planet itself would kill them. Park tapped at his scanner with shaky hands. There's another tunnel on the far side of the chamber. It leads deeper underground. Might connect to a secondary access point. Deeper? Hayes shot him a look. That's the opposite of getting out of here. I know, Park barked, but it's the only way forward. The surface route's gone. Another quake rocked the chamber, tilting the floor beneath their feet. Hayes bit back a curse, forcing herself to focus. Every instinct screamed to get out, but standing here debating would only get them killed. Fine, move, she ordered, grabbing Park's arm and half-dragging him toward the far wall. They sprinted across the collapsing floor, dodging chunks of debris as conduits burst with arcs of blue-white energy. Molten fluid leaked from fractured veins, scorching the rock with acrid steam. The air grew thick with heat, each breath burning Hayes' lungs despite her suit's filtration systems. Ahead, the tunnel yawned open, narrow, jagged, and barely stable. Hayes shoved Park inside first, then dove after him as the floor behind them split apart with a deafening roar. The entrance collapsed the moment she cleared it, sealing them inside the narrow passageway. For a moment, there was only darkness. Hayes could hear Park's ragged breathing beside her, echoing off the stone walls. Dust clung to the air, gritty against her tongue as she forced herself to inhale slowly. "Status?" she rasped. "Alive," Park replied between gasps. "Barely. Keep moving. No time to rest." Hayes activated her suit's built-in lamps, casting beams of white light down the tunnel's jagged walls. The stone glistened with faint traces of metallic ore, the same strange alloy they'd seen near the core. Alien, ancient, and still faintly pulsing with residual energy. They advanced slowly, crouching to squeeze through narrow gaps as the tunnel twisted downward into the earth. The air grew hotter, laced with the faint scent of sulfur and something else. Something metallic and faintly sweet, like blood on a cold blade. The hum that had resonated through the core was gone, but Hayes could still feel a faint vibration beneath her boots, like the distant heartbeat of something slumbering far below. Park scanned the walls as they moved, his neural implants flickering with faint blue light as he tried to interface with the residual energy around them. "These structures, they're not just tunnels," he murmured. "They're part of a larger system. The core we shut down was just one node in a planetary network." Hayes shot him a wary glance. "Meaning?" "Meaning, there might be more of those creatures," Park said grimly. "And if they all wake up—" "They won't," Hayes cut him off, her voice hard. "We shut down the core. Whatever controlled them is dead." Park didn't answer. His silence lingered as they pressed deeper into the earth. Minutes stretched into what felt like hours. The tunnel narrowed and widened without pattern, winding through layers of rock that grew hotter and denser with every step. Hayes could feel sweat soaking her undersuit despite its cooling systems. Her pulse pounded in her ears, but she forced herself to keep moving, eyes fixed ahead as if sheer willpower could carve a path to the surface. Then, without warning, the tunnel opened into another chamber, and Hayes stopped short, pulse hammering as adrenaline surged anew. This space was smaller than the core's chamber, but no less alien. Walls of smooth, black metal curved inward, forming a dome laced with veins of bioluminescent crystal. Strange machines clustered along the perimeter, tall spires of glass and steel connected by cables that pulsed faintly with residual power. Unlike the previous chamber, this one still buzzed with faint life, machines clicking softly as dormant systems cycled in slow, rhythmic pulses. At the chamber's center stood a pedestal of black stone, carved with symbols that seemed to shimmer faintly beneath the light of their suits. Suspended above it hovered a sphere of liquid metal, perfectly smooth, rippling faintly as if reacting to their presence. The air around it crackled with faint static, like the distant hum of a live wire. "What is this place?" Hayes whispered, stepping cautiously towards the pedestal. Park's eyes glinted with reflected light as he scanned the sphere, his implants flickering faster as he approached. It's a control node, but more advanced than the core above. This might be the central hub, the system that governs the entire planetary network. Hayes' pulse quickened. Can you shut it down? I don't know, Park admitted, brow furrowed as he adjusted his scanner. This technology's beyond anything I've ever seen, but if I can interface with it... Before he could finish, the sphere pulsed with sudden light. Symbols ignited across the pedestal, lines of molten gold racing through the stone as the air crackled with electricity. Park stumbled back, clutching his head as blue light flared across his neural implants. Park! Hayes lunged forward, grabbing his shoulder as he convulsed beneath the surge of energy. His eyes rolled back, veins glowing faintly beneath his skin as the sphere's pulse synchronized with his own heartbeat. I can hear it! Park gasped, voice distorted with static. It's speaking, transmitting. Get out of there! Hayes dragged him back, breaking his connection as the sphere flared brighter. Park collapsed to his knees, gasping for air as residual energy crackled across his suit. Hayes raised her rifle, aiming at the sphere. Tell me I should shoot that thing right now. Wait. Park held up a hand, struggling to catch his breath. I accessed part of the system. It's not just controlling the creatures, it's transmitting beyond Mars. A signal, aimed directly at Earth. Hayes' blood turned cold. What kind of signal? I don't know, Park whispered. But it's waking something up, on Earth. Before Hayes could respond, the sphere pulsed again, and this time a sound echoed through the chamber. Deep and resonant, like a voice speaking in a language no human could understand. Yet somehow, Hayes could feel its meaning reverberating in her mind. The first trial has ended. The awakening begins. Hayes clenched her rifle tighter, pulse hammering in her ears as dread coiled deep in her gut. Whatever they'd found beneath Mars, it wasn't over. And Earth was next. The voice echoed through Hayes' skull, more sensation than sound, cold, vast, and ancient. She gritted her teeth against the pressure as it reverberated through her mind, stirring half-formed images she couldn't comprehend. A world consumed by metallic tendrils, cities reduced to twisted wreckage, skies burned black beneath shapes too vast to name. The air in the chamber grew heavy, thick with unseen force that made her bones ache as if gravity itself had doubled. Park clutched his head, eyes squeezed shut against the pulse of alien energy still resonating through his neural implants. His breath came in ragged gasps, sweat slicking his brow as faint arcs of blue static flickered across his skin. Park! Hayes grabbed his shoulder, shaking him hard. Stay with me. I can hear them, he gasped, eyes wild with pain. Millions of them, waking up on Earth. Hayes' pulse pounded in her ears. What the hell are you talking about? They're already there, Park whispered, voice hollow with shock. Buried deep, dormant for centuries, waiting for the signal. The metallic sphere above the pedestal pulsed again, brighter this time, its surface rippling as if something beneath its liquid surface was straining to break free. The alien machines surrounding the chamber hummed louder, circuits flickering to life as dormant systems rebooted. Energy surged through the walls, veins of molten gold igniting in intricate patterns that pulsed faster and faster, like the accelerating heartbeat of something vast and unseen. Hayes stepped between Park and the sphere, raising her plasma rifle as blue sparks arced from the pedestal. I'm shutting this thing down, now! Wait! Park gasped, staggering upright. If you destroy it, we lose any chance of stopping the signal. I can override the transmission, cut off the awakening before it reaches full activation. We don't have time for... The ground beneath their feet lurched, nearly knocking them both to the floor. Dust rained from the ceiling as distant echoes reverberated through the tunnels, low and rhythmic, like the footsteps of something enormous stirring far below. The air crackled with rising heat as faint tremors shook the walls, growing stronger with each pulse of the sphere. Hayes swore under her breath, heart hammering against her ribs. They were out of time. Whatever slumbered beneath Mars was waking, and if Park was right, Earth would be next. "Do it!" she barked. "Cut off that signal, whatever it takes!" Park stumbled back to the pedestal, fingers flying across its alien interface as holographic symbols flared to life above the console. His neural implants flickered brighter as he synced directly with the system, eyes darting beneath closed lids as streams of alien code flooded his mind. "The transmission's already halfway to Earth," he shouted over the rising hum of machinery. "If it completes, every dormant node on the planet will activate." Hayes tightened her grip on her rifle, eyes darting towards the tunnel behind them. The vibrations in the walls were growing stronger, each pulse accompanied by distant metallic echoes that grew louder with every beat. Something was coming. "Hurry, Park!" she shouted. "I'm almost there!" The sphere pulsed faster, its liquid surface rippling with molten blue light as tendrils of energy arced toward Park's outstretched hands. His implants sparked with feedback, but he held his ground, forcing his mind deeper into the alien network. The air grew thick with electromagnetic static, making Hayes's skin prickle beneath her armor as the chamber trembled around them. Then, with a sound like breaking glass, the tunnel behind them exploded. Hayes spun as shards of rock and metal rained through the air, heat searing her faceplate as a massive shape burst into the chamber. It was larger than the creature they'd faced above. Twice as tall, its skeletal frame encased in obsidian armor laced with molten veins of blue energy. Its elongated skull tilted toward them with inhuman grace, eyeless sockets glowing with cold fire as it stepped forward on clawed limbs that gouged deep furrows into the stone floor. Hayes fired without hesitation, plasma bolts scorching through the air as she unloaded her rifle into the creature's chest. Molten metal erupted from its wounds, but it didn't slow, the wounds sealing almost instantly as its claws slashed toward her with lethal speed. Hayes dove aside, rolling beneath the strike as claws shattered the floor where she'd stood moments before. "Park, move!" she shouted, scrambling back to her feet. "I need more time," he gasped, hands locked to the console as arcs of blue energy surged through his implants. "The system's resisting me. Something's fighting back." The creature lunged again, claws slicing through the air as Hayes backpedaled, firing shot after shot into its advancing form. Its armor cracked beneath the plasma blasts, but it moved too fast, closing the distance in seconds. Hayes ducked beneath another swipe, pivoting behind a console as the creature's claws shattered the pedestal beside her in a burst of molten shards. Sweat stung her eyes as heat thickened the air, the rising pulse of the sphere hammering against her skull like a second heartbeat. She gritted her teeth and fired again, molten bolts striking the creature's head and shoulders with rapid bursts of searing light. Armor shattered, exposing the crystalline veins beneath, but still, it kept coming. "Park!" she shouted. "Almost there!" The alien sphere flared blindingly bright as Park slammed his hands against the console, neural implants sparking with blue fire as he forced the system into full override. Energy surged through the walls, molten veins blazing with golden light as alien symbols burned red-hot across the pedestal. Sparks erupted from the surrounding machines as circuits overloaded, metal conduits melting beneath the surge of power, and with a final pulse of searing light, the sphere collapsed inward, imploding into a singularity of molten metal that vanished with a deafening thunderclap. The creature recoiled as if struck, its entire frame convulsing as arcs of blue energy surged wildly beneath its armor. Hayes seized the opening, leveling her rifle and firing point-blank into its exposed chest, each shot tearing deeper into its core until molten fluid sprayed across the chamber walls. With a final, inhuman shriek, the creature collapsed, armor fracturing into molten shards as its skeletal frame disintegrated into ash. Silence fell. Hayes staggered back, chest heaving as adrenaline drained from her limbs. The air still crackled with residual static, but the oppressive pressure that had filled the chamber was gone. The metallic veins along the walls faded to dull gray, their energy spent as the network went dormant once more. Park collapsed to his knees beside the shattered pedestal, sweat soaking his face as the last sparks of blue light faded from his implants. Hayes knelt beside him, gripping his shoulder. "Park, you did it." I think so," he gasped, struggling to catch his breath. "The signal, it's cut off. The nodes on Earth won't activate now. We stopped the awakening." Hayes exhaled slowly, her entire body aching with exhaustion. For the first time in what felt like hours, she allowed herself to believe they might survive this. "Let's get the hell out of here," she said, pulling Park to his feet. They turned toward the far side of the chamber, where another tunnel stretched upward into darkness, their only path to the surface. But as they approached the exit, a faint vibration stirred beneath their boots, deep and distant, like the echo of something far below that had yet to fully awaken. Park paused, eyes wide with sudden realization. "Wait, this network wasn't just transmitting to Earth." Hayes froze. "What do you mean?" Park's voice was hollow with dread. "The signal. It wasn't just calling the nodes on Earth. It was broadcasting beyond the solar system." Hayes's breath caught in her throat. "Beyond—" Before she could finish, a deep, resonant hum vibrated through the chamber, low and vast, like the breath of something awakening across the void. Far above, beyond the thin skies of Mars, distant stars began to flicker with faint blue light. The hum vibrated through the stone walls, low and distant, like the breath of something unimaginably vast stirring from ancient slumber. Hayes felt it in her bones, resonating beneath her armor as faint tremors shuddered through the ground. The air seemed to thicken again, heavy with the scent of molten metal and something older, like the cold breath of space itself. Park clutched his scanner with trembling hands, eyes locked on the readings flickering across its cracked screen. "It's not stopping." The transmission cut off locally, but something out there heard it. Hayes stepped closer, heart hammering against her ribs. "Who? Another fleet like the one we destroyed?" Park shook his head, eyes wide with dread. "No, this is bigger. I'm detecting gravitational anomalies beyond the outer planets. Distortions in space-time like something moving toward the solar system. Fast." "Define fast," Hayes demanded. "Relativistic speed, close to light speed." Park swallowed hard. "They're still months away, maybe longer depending on their approach vector, but they're coming." Hayes' blood ran cold. The first alien fleet had been terrifying enough, armed with technology centuries beyond humanity's grasp. But whatever was coming now, it had answered a signal sent by something older than Earth itself. "We have to warn Earth," she said. "If we can get a signal through the interference—" Another tremor cut her off, shaking the ground hard enough to knock her off balance. Stone cracked overhead as molten veins within the walls flared faintly, like a heartbeat struggling to restart. Hayes cursed under her breath, hauling Park upright. "No more delays. Move!" They sprinted toward the tunnel, boots pounding against stone as echoes chased them through the narrowing passageway. The air grew hotter the deeper they went, thick with the scent of scorched rock and ozone. Park stumbled, exhaustion dragging at his steps, but Hayes gripped his arm, dragging him onward. Minutes stretched into an eternity as they climbed through twisting tunnels, lungs burning with each breath of thin, heated air. Stone scraped against armor as the walls narrowed, forcing them to crawl through sections where rockfalls had partially sealed the path. Every breath came ragged and shallow, but Hayes forced herself to keep moving. Faster, harder, upward. The faint tremors that had chased them since the core's shutdown began to fade. The air cooled as pressure decreased, and Hayes's suit sensors registered a drop in toxic gases, signs they were nearing the surface. "Almost there," she gasped, pulling Park over a jagged ledge. He collapsed beside her, gasping for breath as sweat slicked his face beneath his visor. Wait. Park struggled to catch his breath, hands shaking from exertion and neural feedback. "Just give me a second." "No time." Hayes grabbed his arm, hauling him upright again. "We're getting out of here now." Another few minutes of climbing, and the tunnel opened into a wide fissure that slanted upward at a steep angle. Faint light filtered down from above, pale and thin, but unmistakably sunlight. Hayes's chest ached with sudden hope. "There, go," she shouted, scrambling up the incline. Park followed close behind, hands scrabbling against loose rock as they climbed toward the surface. The air grew clearer with every meter, thin and cold but mercifully free of the underground heat. Dust clung to their armor as stones shifted beneath their boots, but Hayes didn't stop. 50 meters. 20. 10. With a final burst of strength, Hayes hauled herself over the fissure's edge and collapsed onto the rocky surface of Mars. Cold wind scoured across her faceplate, carrying the faint scent of iron-rich dust as she lay gasping beneath the pale red sky. Park dragged himself up beside her, collapsing onto his back as he sucked in ragged breaths. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Hayes stared up at the distant stars, faint and cold against the thin atmosphere. The sun hung low on the horizon, casting long shadows across the jagged landscape. Wind whispered through scattered rocks and crumbling cliffs, the silence almost peaceful after the chaos below. But Hayes couldn't shake the chill coiling deep in her chest. "They're coming." Park's voice broke the silence. We need to contact the Archangel, get a message to Earth before—" A shadow passed overhead. Hayes sat bolt upright, pulse hammering as her hand dropped instinctively to her rifle. Dust scattered as a sleek shape descended from the sky, engines hissing with faint bursts of plasma as it slowed to hover above the rocky slope. The Archangel. Its black hull gleamed against the pale sky, stealth plating shimmering faintly as it adjusted altitude. Searchlights swept across the rocks, locking onto Hayes and Park as the ship's side hatch opened with a hydraulic hiss. A figure appeared, Sergeant Ramirez, plasma rifle slung across his chest as he waved them forward. "Move!" Hayes shouted, hauling Park to his feet. They sprinted across the rocky slope as the Archangel touched down, landing struts hissing against the uneven ground. Wind whipped dust across their path, but Hayes didn't stop until she reached the ramp, clambering aboard as Ramirez pulled Park up beside her. "Where the hell have you two been?" Ramirez barked, scanning their scorched armor and bloodied visors. "No time to explain," Hayes gasped. "Get us airborne, now." Ramirez didn't argue. The ramp sealed shut as the Archangel's engines flared brighter, lifting the ship skyward with a burst of blue plasma. Hayes collapsed into a seat beside Park, chest heaving as the deck vibrated beneath her boots. As the ship ascended through the thin Martian atmosphere, Hayes wiped sweat from her faceplate and forced herself to focus. "Comms, get me a secure channel to Earth." "I'll try," Ramirez replied, adjusting the controls. "Interference is still heavy from the underground systems, but— Wait, I'm picking up something." Static crackled through the speakers, distorted and faint, but unmistakably human. Hayes leaned forward as a fragmented voice broke through the interference. Calling all Earth Defense Command stations. Priority 1 alert. Incoming contact beyond Neptune's orbit. Unidentified vessels approaching at high velocity. Repeat. Unidentified vessels approaching. The signal cut out with a burst of static. Silence hung heavy in the cabin. Park's voice broke the tension, low and strained. They heard the signal, and they're already here. Hayes' pulse pounded in her ears as she stared out the viewport. Beyond the thinning atmosphere, stars gleamed cold and distant against the black void. Somewhere beyond those distant lights, something was coming, vast and unstoppable, drawn by the ancient network that had stirred from beneath Mars. And this time, Earth wouldn't have months to prepare. This time, humanity would face the end of everything. Earth's horizon gleamed in the viewport of the Archangel, blue and white against the void of space. Yet Hayes couldn't shake the cold knot of dread coiled deep in her chest. Somewhere beyond the outer planets, something vast and unknown approached. A force that had answered the ancient signal from Mars. And this time, humanity's weapons might not be enough. Park sat beside her, silent and pale, his neural implants flickering faintly with residual feedback from the alien network. Though the transmission had been cut off before reaching full activation, its echoes still clung to him, half-formed impressions of a presence too vast to comprehend. "They're not like the First Fleet," he murmured. "Those were just scouts. But this, it feels like something older, stronger." "Can you still sense them?" Hayes asked, her voice low. Park hesitated, gaze distant. "Not clearly, just fragments. But they're coming fast. Days, maybe less, depending on their acceleration." Hayes exhaled slowly, forcing herself to focus. Fear wouldn't help them now. "We'll warn Earth. Let Command know what's coming and—" "Commander!" Ramirez's voice cut through the tension from the comm station. "Picking up transmissions from Earth's orbital defense grid. Multiple energy spikes near Neptune's orbit. Wait, visuals coming in now." The main holo display flared to life, casting pale light across the cabin as grainy footage from distant satellites filled the screen. Hayes leaned forward, breath catching in her throat as the images sharpened. Ships. Hundreds of them gliding through the void with impossible grace. Their hulls gleamed black against the starlight, sleek, predatory shapes bristling with alien weaponry. Unlike the previous fleet, these vessels radiated faint halos of blue-white energy, as if space itself bent beneath their presence, and beyond them, half-shrouded in the shadows of distant gas giants, loomed something far larger, a shape so vast it defied scale, its silhouette jagged with spires of obsidian metal that pulsed faintly with molten veins of gold. A command ship. No, something more. Park inhaled sharply as faint whispers flickered through his implants, distant yet unmistakable. "It's not just a fleet," he said softly. "It's a harbinger." Hayes clenched her fists to steady herself. "What does that mean?" "I don't know," Park admitted. "But whatever commands those ships, it's not just another alien leader. It's something ancient, something that's conquered worlds before ours." Ramirez's fingers danced across the controls. "Earth Defense Command is mobilizing. Orbital cannons, planetary shields, everything's going online. But if they're already at Neptune, then we've got hours, not days," Hayes finished grimly. The comms crackled again, and this time, the voice of General Catherine Briggs echoed through the cabin. "All Earth Defense Forces, prepare for imminent engagement. This is not a drill. Repeat, imminent engagement. Primary defense stations are to hold the line at Saturn's orbit. Secondary fallback positions will be established at Jupiter if containment fails. Earth is the last line. We will not fall without a fight." The transmission cut off with a burst of static. Silence hung heavy in the cabin. Then Hayes stood, pulse steady despite the cold dread curling beneath her ribs. Fear had no place here. Not now. "Set course for Earth," she ordered. "Maximum burn. We're not sitting this one out." "Commander," Ramirez began, but Hayes cut him off with a glance. "We didn't survive Mars just to watch Earth fall from the sidelines. Get us home, now." Ramirez nodded sharply. "Aye, ma'am." The Archangel's engines roared to life, thrusters igniting with bursts of blue plasma as the ship angled toward Earth. Acceleration pressed Hayes into her seat as the hull vibrated beneath the strain, but she welcomed the sensation. It meant they were moving. Faster. Outside the viewport, stars blurred into faint streaks of light as the ship tore through the void, racing toward a planet teetering on the brink of annihilation. The battle had already begun by the time the Archangel reached Earth. Even before they broke orbit, Hayes could see the flashes of energy weapons flaring against the darkness. Blue-white bursts of plasma and railgun slugs streaking through space as Earth's orbital defenses engaged the approaching fleet. Explosions bloomed like distant stars as alien ships returned fire, lances of molten energy slicing through human warships with terrifying precision. The comms crackled with overlapping transmissions, shouts, orders, desperate cries for backup as Earth's forces struggled to hold the line. "Enemy vessels breaching defensive perimeter. Shields failing. Fall back to secondary grid." "We need reinforcements now!" Hayes clenched her fists, pulse hammering as Ramirez guided the Archangel into formation with Earth's remaining defense fleet. Dozens of warships surrounded them, their hulls gleaming silver and gunmetal beneath the faint glow of planetary shields that flickered against incoming fire. Railguns thundered and plasma cannons blazed, lighting the void with bursts of molten light as human pilots weaved through alien formations, their fighters leaving trails of ionized gas in their wake. Yet for every enemy ship destroyed, more emerged from the void. Sleek, black predators whose armor absorbed human weapons with terrifying efficiency. Tendrils of blue energy lashed through space, tearing through warships with surgical precision as Earth's fleet struggled to hold its ground. "Commander," Ramirez shouted, "inbound vessels, 3 o'clock high." Hayes grabbed the controls, adrenaline surging as she veered the Archangel aside, just as lances of molten plasma streaked past, searing through the void where they'd hovered moments before. The hull vibrated as shockwaves battered the ship, alarms blaring as shields flared against the heat. "Returning fire!" Ramirez barked, unleashing a barrage of railgun slugs that hammered into the nearest alien vessel. The ship's armor cracked beneath the assault, molten shards scattering into space before the warship crumpled in a burst of blue-white fire. Another alien ship lunged from the void, tendrils of energy slashing towards the Archangel, but Hayes rolled hard to starboard, plasma bolts searing through its exposed flank as she tore past the wreckage. More enemy ships closed in, their weapons illuminating the void with bursts of molten light. And then Earth's planetary cannons opened fire. From the surface below, titanic bursts of energy surged upward, plasma lances and hypersonic projectiles that streaked through the atmosphere with terrifying speed. They struck the alien fleet with thunderous force, shattering hulls and scattering debris through the void as Earth's last line of defense fought to hold back the tide. Yet still, the alien command ship loomed beyond the battle, untouched and unmoving, watching, waiting. Park's voice broke through the chaos, low and strained. "It's not engaging. It's waiting for something." Hayes' pulse pounded in her ears as she wove through the chaos, eyes locked on the distant silhouette of the alien command ship. Its spires gleamed faintly with molten gold, veins of energy pulsing in slow, deliberate rhythm, as if it were counting down to something unseen. and deep in her bones, Hayes knew. This isn't just a battle, it's a test. The transmission from Mars had been a summons. This fleet wasn't here to conquer, it was here to judge, and if Earth failed, there would be no second chance. Hayes gritted her teeth, hands tightening on the controls as alien warships closed in from all sides. Plasma fire streaked past the viewport, the hull shuddering with impacts as shields strained to hold. But she didn't slow, because this was humanity's last stand. And she would not go quietly.